The Interspecies Harmony Initiative's pairing ceremony on New Terra colony followed predictable patterns. Scholars paired with scholars, artisans with artisans, diplomats with diplomats. The program coordinators carefully matched compatible personalities. Calm, scholarly Sylvari who appreciated human literature, or artistic types wanting to collaborate on cross-cultural projects. James Korran, systems engineer, expected a technically minded Sylvari interested in comparing human and alien approaches to infrastructure. Instead, when his name was called, the Sylvari who stepped forward was Princess Kira Stormheart, third daughter of the Sylvari High Council, and absolutely nothing like anyone expected. She was fierce where others were calm, moved with predatory grace suggesting combat training rather than scholarly pursuits, and her long ears were swept back in a posture that indicated excitement or aggression, possibly both. The pairing coordinator looked as confused as James felt, checking the manifest 3 times before confirming that yes, Princess Kira specifically requested James Korran as her human companion. Nobody knew why. Kira offered no explanation, just studied James with intense silver eyes that seemed to catalog his every weakness and strength in seconds, then announced in accented but confident English, "Good, you will do. We leave now." Before James could protest or request clarification, Kira was striding toward the exit, clearly expecting him to keep up. Around him, other participants settled into comfortable routines, attending lectures, visiting museums, having calm discussions about philosophical differences. James wondered what he'd done to deserve this chaos instead of the peaceful cultural exchange everyone else was getting. The first week with Kira was absolute chaos. While other human Sylvari pairs attended carefully planned cultural activities, Kira dragged James into the wilderness surrounding New Terra colony. She hunted with weapons James didn't know civilians could carry, climbed cliff faces that made him dizzy watching, demonstrated combat techniques that were simultaneously beautiful and terrifying. She spoke in brief, direct statements rather than elaborate formal language most Sylvari used, showed no interest in program coordinators' planned activities, and treated every day like an adventure to be conquered. James tried repeatedly to understand why she requested him specifically. He wasn't a warrior or hunter. He was an engineer whose idea of excitement was debugging particularly tricky code. What could a wild, unpredictable princess possibly want with him? Kira deflected every attempt at serious conversation, responding with "You are interesting," or "I chose correctly," that explained nothing. But despite the chaos, James noticed things. Kira never went so far into wilderness that James couldn't follow, even if he was slower and less graceful. When she demonstrated hunting techniques, she was patient teaching him basics. She chose campsites near water sources and good shelter, considering his human needs without being asked. During their third night camping under New Terra's binary moons, when James finally asked directly why she requested him, Kira's response was unexpectedly vulnerable. "Because everyone else in your group is trying to be something they're not, trying to impress us, or prove humanity worthy, or perform some version of themselves they think we want to see. But your application was honest. You said you wanted to learn, to understand, to build things together. No pretense, no performance, just real." She looked at him with those intense silver eyes. "My people value elaborate courtesy and careful masks. I wanted something different. I wanted real." Understanding Kira's reasoning didn't make living with her less overwhelming, but it gave James framework for interpreting her behavior. She wasn't trying to exhaust him or prove superiority. She was testing whether he was genuinely the person his application suggested, someone who approached challenges with honest effort rather than false confidence. Slowly, James began adapting. He'd never match Kira's physical capabilities. Sylvari evolved as apex predators on their homeworld. But he learned to move more efficiently through rough terrain, to read environmental signs she taught him, to appreciate the fierce joy she took in physical challenges. More importantly, he discovered that Kira's wild energy wasn't random. She was testing herself constantly, pushing boundaries, seeking challenges because she'd spent her life in royal courts where every movement was prescribed by protocol and every word weighted with political consequence. This year was her escape, her chance to be something other than the princess who must maintain perfect courtly behavior. James became her anchor, the one person who saw her wildness and didn't demand she constrain it to fit expectations. And Kira became something unexpected for James. She challenged his tendency toward caution, pushed him to experience rather than just analyze, showed him that calculated risks could lead to extraordinary experiences. She respected his engineering mind, asked genuine questions about human technology, listened when he explained complex systems with attention suggesting she was actually interested. They developed a rhythm, Kira's explosive energy balanced by James's steady pragmatism, her instinctive reactions complemented by his analytical thinking. When they encountered a collapsed bridge, she provided physical capability to implement the temporary repair James designed. When they were caught in sudden storm, his knowledge of shelter construction combined with her ability to gather materials quickly. The other pairs noticed the difference. While they were having pleasant but superficial cultural exchanges, James and Kira were developing genuine partnership built on complementary strengths and growing trust. The turning point came during the program's midpoint evaluation, when all pairs presented reports on their cultural exchange experiences. Every other pair delivered careful, diplomatic presentations about mutual understanding and successful collaboration. When it was their turn, Kira stood before assembled coordinators and delivered something completely different. I requested James Korran because I wanted honesty instead of performance. What I found was something more valuable, a human who didn't try to tame me or change me or fit me into comfortable categories. He accepted that I am wild, fierce, unpredictable, and rather than demanding I become something else, he learned to move with that energy instead of against it. She looked at James, her expression carrying warmth the formal presentation didn't quite hide. In my culture, I am constantly told to be more controlled, more diplomatic, more suitable for my station. James never asked that. He simply accepted who I am and found ways to complement rather than constrain. That acceptance is the greatest gift your species has given mine. The presentation caused minor scandal. Sylvari royalty weren't supposed to speak so directly about personal feelings. But it also sparked important conversations about what cultural exchange really means, not just polite surface interactions, but genuine acceptance of differences, even uncomfortable ones. As the program continued into its second half, James and Kira's relationship deepened beyond companionship into something approaching love, though neither spoke it directly. The program concluded with participants making choices about their futures. Most pairs parted amicably, promising to stay in touch but returning to separate lives. James and Kira stood together at the departure ceremony. She asked the question both had been avoiding, "What happens now?" James's answer carried the same honesty that made her choose him. "Now, we figure out how to make this work beyond the program parameters. Because you're right that I never wanted a wild alien princess as my companion. I wanted someone predictable and easy. Instead, I got someone extraordinary who challenges everything I thought I knew about myself. And I'm not ready to give that up just because the official program is ending." Kira's smile was radiant, fierce, completely unsuited to royal dignity and absolutely genuine. "Good, because I chose you once, I choose you again. And I will keep choosing you, even when it's complicated and difficult and neither of our peoples quite understand what we're doing." They departed New Terra together, heading toward uncertain futures but certain partnership. Around them, other participants discussed their successful exchanges and returned to normal lives. James reflected that he got exactly what he didn't want and discovered it was what he needed. someone who refuses to fit comfortable categories, who demands authenticity rather than performance, whose wild spirit found home with his steady pragmatism. And Kira, who spent her life being told to constrain herself to fit royal expectations, found someone who loved her not despite her wildness, but because of it. Proof that sometimes the worst matches on paper become the best partnerships in reality, and that being chosen by someone fierce and free is the greatest honor, even if you never saw it coming.